Welcome back to the Ladies of Lorcana Project. I'm your host, Lady Lore.
I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Stephanie Hall. Stephanie is an Arizona-based Lorcana content creator, Amber Steel aficionado, and community organizer. She is one of the three Lorcana Muses, known for her cheerful disposition, welcoming presence, and authentic nature. Welcome, Stephanie. I'm really happy to have you on the show today.
I'm so excited to be here, Katie.
So I wanted to start off on how do you see your role in the Lorcana community? Because you kind of have several slashes in your description. So how do you identify?
You're right. I feel like I wear a lot of different hats within the Arizona community, but the one I'm most proud of, the one that I really love the most is welcoming committee. I love bringing in new players and making them feel welcome, making sure they feel great so they keep playing in league and going to tournaments. And I always share your blog with them because it is. I mean, it's such a cool way to have all of the local leagues, all of the tournament information. Like, it's so nice. And I haven't seen very many other communities have that.
Well, for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar or aren't local to Arizona, I started off my journey into content creation, I guess you would call it that, really just by listing out the days of the week that people could play locally, then added tournaments and added a blog. So that's what Stephanie's referring to. I love that you talk about being this welcoming committee, because I think that's something that's so needed, because it can be kind of scary for new players to join in when it seems like here's this group of people, they know each other. So how do I get in?
Right. And I think it's been such a predominantly male community in TCGs that a lot of the times it's women and marginalized people who are a little bit nervous. They had a bad experience with TCGs before. They're not sure, but they want to really play Disney because Disney is for everybody. And that's where I feel like it's such a need to have people like me to, hey, we are super welcoming. We accept everybody. I will preface that I usually warn them that our leagues are very cutthroat. Like, we have some competitive players, but everybody's really nice and they really want to help you learn and grow. If you have any questions about deck building or getting more competitive, everybody in our community is so great about welcoming them in.
I know that you have mentioned in your last couple recordings of the Muses podcast how you've been able to meet new players and welcome them in. So I love that that's something that you get excited by, because I think that's so needed in the community.
Yeah.
So how did your Lorcana journey begin? Were you someone who was standing on the fence after other TCG experience? Like, do I step in? Do I not? Like, where did you start?
I have basic TCG knowledge. I've played Pokemon on and off my whole life, but it was really Daryl, Brittany's husband, who kind of came to our group of friends and said, hey, I found product, which was a wild thing back in November of 2023, but he found product for Lorcana, and he's been trying to get the females, us, to play anything with them because Doug, Kimber's husband, and my husband, Alex, all played Magic together. And we were all kind of like,
I knew that the three ladies who compromised the Muses, which is Stephanie, Brittany, and Kimber, I knew that the three of you all knew each other prior to Lorcana and have a friendship. I didn't realize that your partners, your husbands, knew each other as well. So it sounds like they were kind of in this gaming world wanting you guys to join in, and this was a really nice avenue to bring you guys in. And now you guys have become this whole
this whole thing.
Yeah, this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't actually know if I've mentioned it very much on the podcast, but Brittany and I have known each other since middle school. Very long friendship. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, our husbands have known each other, and then Brittany works with Kimber. So that's how they knew each other. And then we all kind of meshed together, and the rest is history. So yeah, we've all been a great group of friends. It's been a lot of fun. I love that now there's one singular hobby that we all enjoy, because that has been hard.
I think that's really hard as we get older and we maybe have less time to give to hobbies and our friendships, to find that crossover where hobby and friendship
absolutely
overlap. What inspired you to get into the side of content creation?
Yeah, so I came to Brittany and Kimber and said, I want to make a podcast. I was listening to Lorcana podcasts before the idea, and I started realizing it was, again, very male dominated. And I was like, there's got to be a space for like casual girls and girly pops to like make content here. There was Live Laugh Lorcana, which I loved. And then they disbanded. So I was like, there's a hole here, and I think we could fill it. Brittany and I are and Kimber are so passionate about the game, just ourselves. So I was like, let's just take our group chat basically and put it so someone can listen to us.
So were you already talking about the things that you guys talk about on the podcast just outside of it? It's like, hey, let's just press record
Yes.
and
Yeah.
share this.
Basically, we're like, oh, we were always like diving into the lore. We love flavor text. We talked about, our favorite IPs coming to Disney Lorcana. So yeah, we were just like, let's just hit record on this and see if it goes anywhere.
It sounds like it's really blossomed. If you were to go back to yourself at that point, knowing like where you've gotten to in the community now, what would you tell yourself then?
I think just like give her a hug. She has grown so much into herself. I've learned so much about myself and have found myself again through this game and through content creation. So I'm really just like, hey, this gamble you're taking, this is just going to pay off and it's going to be so much fun. You're in for a ride.
I love that. And I love that you say just like give her a hug, like the encouragement of try it. Like you don't know until you try it.
Yes, absolutely.
Being part of a trio, I imagine that you guys all have slightly different roles when it comes to what you do as content creators. Is there a specific role that you fill within your group?
Yes. Well, my background is in PR. That's what I do for a living. So I feel like a lot of the time I'm our branding manager.
Okay. What a great skill to have.
It is a great skill. So making sure our socials are always plugged every episode, every, co-host episode or like guest spot we're in. I do all the editing for our podcast too. So making sure those come out on time and making sure we stay on a schedule. I keep our calendar all nice and put together.
Sounds like you're managing a lot of the behind the scenes aspects. If you were to say like a day in the life of the Lorcana Muses behind the scenes, what are some of the things that your audience doesn't get to see that you work on?
Tuesdays is kind of our main day because that's when we record. So you see us, I wake up in the morning, I usually post across all our socials, like, let us know if you have any questions, it's recording day, which is so cool to see that the community has feedback for us and wants us to talk about things. And then I let Kimber and Brittany know. The one thing I think people don't realize is a lot of the times we show up to record and we spend about half an hour to an hour just like talking. And not even just talking about Lorcana. We do talk about Lorcana, but it's almost like our own, we get to see each other once a week. Let's do a quick powwow of how's your week doing? Do you need a hug? Life has been sucky, which is a lot of fun.
So is that more like a social catch up for you guys? Just as friends?
We love that like this has brought us a mandatory almost schedule of seeing each other once a week at the very least. And then we usually go to dinner after we record and it's a lot of fun. And then Wednesday, I spend my morning editing the podcast, and then Thursday, it's out.
Does that take a good chunk of time to do all the editing and posting and getting what you create out?
It usually takes me about 3 hours to edit and get it out just to make sure everything sounds good, slice out anything that we accidentally. Our biggest blunder is that we will say our kids' names a lot in the podcast. And as a group, Kimber and I have decided to keep the anonymity to our kids' names. So we catch each other all the time. She's like, oh my God, you just said it. And I'm like, oh no.
Like, I'm going to have to go back and take that out.
I have to take it out, cut that. And then it's just fun. My husband sits usually next to me when I edit, and then we listen to it after editing so he can give me feedback on like, that was a good one. I really liked you guys talking about this.
I think that's something that a lot of times people don't think about. I know for myself that when I'm digesting content, like I'm listening to podcasts or watching reels or whatever I am tuning into at that point, I forget how much work goes into the behind the scenes so that 3 hours of editing that you're sitting there like trimming out certain sections and getting it to flow nicely. That there's really a lot of time and care put into what you guys are doing outside of
Yeah,
just the finished segment.
absolutely. And then one of our goals this year is to break more into video, like real short form YouTube videos. And so Brittany's kind of taken up that role where she's like, I can do the video editing since you do the podcast editing. And apparently my one video, because I did a Set Champs recap of my run at Set Champs for As I See, she's like, it took me 8 hours to do, which I'm sure, as you get better, it gets quicker. It used to take me a lot longer to edit the podcast as well. It's just funny. I'm like, oh, really? For a 10-minute, 20-minute video, it took you 8 hours.
Yeah, I know. As you're like first getting used to systems, there's that learning curve. You're like,
Yes.
okay. What has been one of your favorite things or favorite memories about being a Lorcana content creator?
The very first DLC I went to, which was Vegas, it was so cool to, like, we see the numbers and we see that people listen to our podcast, but that's when we started having people like come up to us and say, oh my gosh, we love your podcast. I recognize you. It's so cool. Like, we love that what you're doing. Specifically, I know in Anaheim for nationals, somebody had recognized just our voices. And so he turned around and said, are you guys the Lorcana Muses? And that was like such a cool moment. Like, oh, we made it moment.
So getting that recognition and knowing that people are tuning in and
Yeah.
appreciating what you are bringing to life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think because we started it with, our friends and family will listen to it. Maybe some of the Arizona Lorcana community will listen to it. I don't think any of us expected it to grow as it did. And it's just really validating to like know that people really like or resonate with what we have to say.
On the flip side of the excitement of getting recognition, have there been any challenges that you have faced doing the podcast or being a content creator?
I think the biggest hurdle for me at first was being okay with it taking time away from my family. So having to go record every Tuesday and not be home with my kids and my husband was a little bit difficult at first, but I go to therapy. That's not a secret to anybody, but being able to work that out and say it's good for me to be able to do my own thing. It's good for them to see that modeled behavior that I'm my own person. And that's been really helpful. But at first it definitely was like, oh no, I should be doing homework and cooking dinner and putting them to bed.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
As a mother myself, those commitments and feeling that, hey, these are my responsibilities. And there is that societal expectation placed on parents, but specifically often there's more of that burden on the mothers to always be present.
Yeah.
We are our own individuals, and it is important. I love that you bring up the concept of modeling as well, that you're like, this is okay to go and be my own person and have interests, and that's what you are wanting to show your children too.
Absolutely.
All right, this next question is going to go in a slightly different direction.
Okay.
But for anyone who listens to the Lorcana Muses podcast, we have all heard that the Goofy movie is a favorite of yours.
No.
And I think one of your number one wishes to
Yeah.
bring into the realm of Lorcana. So what is it that you believe makes this movie so iconic?
I think when you think of the 90s, the Goofy movie encompasses it all. Just the way Max dresses, the skateboard kid. It was one of my favorites as a kid as well, it was a different story than what we were seeing with like The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. It wasn't a princess falls in love with prince, happy ever after. It was, let's take something that's really hard as a kid to grapple with, which is how do I balance my friends with my family? And I love that story. It makes me cry still to think about it. And it's funny how as a kid, you sided with Max. You're like, come on, Goofy, just let him go to the concert or to his date or whatever it was. And now as an adult, I'm like, please just spend time with your dad, Max. They grow up so fast.
You have that like coming of age, but now getting to look at it in hindsight of the time is slipping.
I've always loved Goofy. Like out of the Mickey Mouse and Friends, he's been my favorite. And then the music slaps.
How fun would it be if there was a whole set that was like 90s art theme?
I would love that.
Like characters or IP that didn't show up in the 90s, but they gave them that like 90s glow. I don't know.
No, I would love to see like Ariel in the like scrunchy buns and like butterfly clips. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Awesome. So clearly, I'm a big fan of the Lorcana Muses podcast. I think I've been listening to you guys since day one. And I have noticed that within the show, you guys have taken on some different roles. And one of the
Mhm.
things I know that you've been commended for and people have come up to you and spoken about is how vulnerable you have been. You know, you've shared not only the highlights of your Lorcana journey, but also some of the struggles, you know, including managing anxiety and mental health, working to improve gameplay, and even facing disappointments when they come. So tell me a little bit about what it's been like for you to be so vulnerable on a public platform and, you know, what have the responses been like to that?
So I think it's kind of a two-part answer. I didn't really do it on purpose at first. I was just, that's who I am as a person. I've always been an open book. If you have a question, I'll answer it, no problem. I wanted to talk about my experiences. I wanted to just share everything that I was experiencing. I think it was therapeutic for me to do. And then once I started realizing that it was helping other people, it was okay, like that's amazing. I would love to help as many people as I can. So if I continue to share my journey, that's great. Because I definitely at first was like, if I am talking too much about it and the community really does not like it, then I'll just shut up and I'll just talk Lorcana. But there was that reception of, no, this is amazing. Anxiety is a very real thing. Depression's a real thing. Dealing with highs and lows. It's just who I am, and I want to share that because I know everybody deals with it. You can be the best of the best, and you can still have like a bad day. And so I think that's just what I wanted to provide.
I've been really touched by how candid you have been about your experiences and how openly you have talked about like there are days that it is hard, that, you know, anxiety comes up, or that you know, big emotions, and even talking about, you know, going and processing those with your therapist, that
Yeah,
it normalizes that aspect of like we all need outlets. You know, I think mental health is such an important topic in gaming, and I know something we are both passionate about. You know, what are your thoughts in terms of maintaining a healthy mindset while playing TCGs? What are, you know, what are some of the I guess potential pitfalls that you see that could come up in the TCG world?
the anxiety comes in a lot. For me, it was, am I good enough to play with these other people? Am I good enough to have conversations with these people about things that I'm seeing, especially when we talk meta? Do they even value my opinion, or should I just go sit down because I'm known as a more casual player? Talking it through with my friends who know me and are like, no, we always value your opinion. I know that other people value your opinion, like, and having them encourage me to talk has been great. Having a therapist to like, hey, I had a really bad week, and she tells me a lot, like it's okay to take a step back. Maybe this weekend we don't go to, Lorcana, and which is so funny because she doesn't know what Lorcana even is, but she tries. And she's just like, it's okay to go and do your other interests, right? So Lorcana is not my only hobby, and sometimes I need to step back and go do something else. And a lot of the times I find that I come back and I'm fresh. I feel better. I'm ready to play. Even if I'm constantly losing, I'm feeling good about it. So yeah, I think just being able to check in with yourself regularly and say, I need a break.
I think, you know, your first point of the anxiety, like that's something I see very present in the TCG community. There can be a lot of social anxiety, and sometimes that can lend to misinterpretations of the way people are showing up. You know, so being able to have that compassion for fellow players as well as ourselves is huge.
Yeah.
And there can be that burnout. So taking that pause, as you describe, having some of that balance. I know it was Seattle DLC. My husband and I going into that, we're like, we're going to take this time as a little bit of reevaluation as to what we want this game to be in our lives. Like how are we showing up? How is this taking our time? Given that time is a resource, and it was really helpful for us as a couple and family to have those discussions.
Yeah.
So I think that's again really helpful to note that might be something, for listeners at time to time. Take a pause, take a moment to reflect. And how do you want this game, because it is a game,
Yes.
to be part of your life?
Yeah, I like to remind people that at the end of the day, we are playing with Mickey Mouse and princesses on these cards. So
yes,
sometimes it's okay to not take things so seriously. But to your point too, social anxiety is such a the Venn diagram for TCGs and people with social anxiety is very almost a circle. I don't know why
those
it just
lenses are
is.
colliding.
What I have come to realize too is it's okay to just ask people. So I'm neurodivergent. I have a hard time reading any sort of tone through text message, or if like it's too noisy and I can't like have a one-on-one conversation with you. I heavily rely on body language and then like tone of voice. So I've come to realize it's easier for me if I just say, "Hey, did you mean this to sound like I took it?" And a lot of the time it's been, "No, like absolutely not. I didn't mean to be rude or sarcastic or whatever it was with you." And then they explain. And I think that's something specifically the Lorcana community does really well, is talking to each other and communicating with each other.
Fantastic tool and tip for people who maybe experience like, wait, did I get that right? Is there any other advice that you would give players who struggle with, mental health in this?
If you're struggling with even the idea of coming out to League because you don't know anybody, bring a friend that first time, even if they're not going to be into the Lorcana themselves. I think having a friend say, "Hey, I really want to try this thing out, but I need you there to have as a buffer," is so helpful. It's really hard because I had my youngest 7 years ago, and I went into the hole of postpartum depression. I lost all interest in all of my hobbies. I didn't know who I was as a mom or even as a person anymore. And having a friend that continues to push you and ask you to like come out and try this thing. Okay, you don't like it. Let's try this thing. Okay, you don't like that. Let's like just having friends and talking to your friends about the struggles you're having, whether it's Lorcana, whether it's in life, whether it's whatever, is so important. And I'm going to start crying, but I cannot commend or like thank Brittany enough for sticking with me for 7 years until I found myself again, because I did lose a lot of friends when I became a mom. And I think that's also why I started doing this content creation thing, is if I could help any other mom not go through what I went through, that'd be amazing. Because it's such a lonely journey and people don't talk about it enough. And I see moms play Lorcana all the time. New moms, older moms, like whoever it is, they're like, "Yeah, like this is the first time I've left my baby." And I'm like, "That's amazing. I'm so happy for you." And, checking in with them too, because I know that anxiety feeling of, oh, this is the first time they've left their baby. That's all they can think about. So being able to check in with them and say, "Are you okay? Like, it's okay if you want to go and call them real quick," or whatever it is.
Thank you for sharing that piece of your journey. I think there's going to be a lot of people who can relate to that. I know that something we are told as we approach becoming a parent, that everything's going to change and it's going to be different. And yet those words don't prepare you for what that
They
difference
really
is. And it's, it's different for everyone in the unique way that it hits. I think that loss of identity is really something that is challenging for many people, particularly, women, as they step into parenthood of, well, who am I now that am I this caretaker for these cool, tiny humans? Yes. And it doesn't have to stop there. There's more than just that. And for myself, first few times going out to a league, bringing my daughter along, she's 6 now, but she was younger at the time. And having to get up and help her find her way to the potty and take care of snacks and all of these things. Like, it's a lot to manage.
It is. And I think that's why I really love this community's willingness to say, bring your child. We had a new parent too at our league who brought in his baby, and we've seen that baby from just sitting in a stroller to now toddling around while we're trying to play. We're so happy. Your children are safe. It's just amazing.
I know that I have heard stories in the community of women who would want to compete in set champs, and they're still perhaps like nursing. And so having to take time to pause to breastfeed or even to pump during a tournament. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, if one that you're going to tackle that and juggle those things. I love that there is support in this community for that. I know there's an upcoming tournament in Arizona, which is a large tournament that's providing childcare. You know, that becomes a large barrier for
Isn't that amazing?
a lot of, that's awesome. So thinking of those additional ways that this community can really support people who are parts of families that include children.
And it's not just parents. I know losing yourself is something that everybody struggles with, whether it's because you're switching careers or going through a spell of, like, it's just, it happens. And so I'm just like, have those friends, have that hobby that you turn to that really helps. And just keep reaching out.
I'm really glad to hear that you had someone to be able to share that with who was that encouragement. And for people who maybe are listening, if you don't have one of those people in your life, this could be a way to meet some people.
Absolutely. I never thought I would say like my league is like my family, but they are. We share each other's struggles and celebrations in life. And when one of us is going through a lot, we are there to help support. And that's amazing.
You've talked a little bit about your job, talked a little bit about family. Who are you outside of Lorcana?
That's a lot of no. So I'm a mom first and foremost, but that's not the only thing I am anymore, which is so happy. I'm like so happy. I work in PR. I have always loved English, and I got my degree in English literature. Like, I love to read. I love to write. I'm hopefully publishing a book one day.
Wow.
I
what
love
style
it all.
of writing?
Anything really. I've written poetry, I've written essays, short stories, like anything. I love to play video games, so I'm a big nerd at heart in general. Super, super into video games, silly music. Fortnite, which is so funny. I never thought I would say that, but it's so fun.
What is it that you like about it?
I got into it because my oldest plays with my husband, and I was like, I really want to play this and try it. I like it because you just do all these kinds of side quests. It gets a little bit of that aggression that you might feel like out as you're shooting another player, but it's silly. And that's what I love about it most, is that it doesn't take itself seriously. I'm dressed up as Baymax and they're dressed up as cats or whatever. We're shooting each other and it's just fun. I love that like girls play that game. So I've met some amazing girls playing that game, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of girls and women playing games, that is a big part of what I'm wanting to do with this show, is just highlight women in the TCG community and specifically Lorcana. So I want to switch a little bit over to focusing on experiences around being a woman. Have you faced any experiences in Lorcana or even the TCG community outside of Lorcana that have been unique or challenging due to gender?
I haven't personally, really. I mean, there's been a few cases where the male ego has showed up and that somebody loses to me and then they get really frustrated about it, which I cannot stand. And that's men and women, but mostly it's men. It's funny because there's this one memory that sticks out to me, but I was playing this new person at League, and then the next week on the podcast, we were talking about specifically those situations where if I win, don't get frustrated at me because I won. Like, get frustrated at yourself. I understand the frustration, but like, to put it on to me is not fair. And so that person that I played the weekend before had messaged me and said, hey, I'm so sorry. I did this thing and that's not fair to you. I was not talking about him. I didn't even remember like he did something like that. So I completely was like, that's amazing that you're checking in with yourself and you're seeing that you're maybe did get a little frustrated with me. I did not perceive it, but like, how cool that you opened this line of communication with me to talk about it.
Mm.
So that's one of my biggest. He and I are great, and we play together a lot. And I win sometimes, and he wins sometimes, and it's just amazing. So
I like
yeah,
that came back around to your words of talking about a different experience caused someone to reflect on
on his
their
own. Yeah, like I was shocked.
that is something I think I have heard, not specifically directed at me, but just like more of an overhearing way of like, oh, I lost to a girl type of
Yeah,
thing. And it's
gross.
what does that mean? How about we just say you lost, you didn't win? Like,
Yeah,
bummer.
you lost in general. That sucks. It doesn't don't add the to a girl part. Like that doesn't make me feel good.
Right. That's like adding this extra lens of some sort of connotation that I lost to a lesser player. No,
Yes,
that's not
no,
what it's about.
no. And we have kids that play in our league too. So I really try hard to make sure I don't hear, "Oh, I lost to a kid." Like no, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there are some youth
They're sharp.
players in the valley who are really good that I'm like, oh, I don't want to
Woo!
face you.
No, yeah. Purple Shadow Gaming just had a kids tournament, and those kids were, I heard, really sharp with their skills. So, and I played
Yes.
with some of those kids.
Yeah, we ended up taking my daughter out. It was her first competitive tournament. I was so proud of her. I was like, way
Aw,
to go.
that's amazing.
And like you say, like watching some of them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm scared.
Yeah. Yes.
Are there any ways that you would like to see Lorcana community change to become more inclusive to women and marginalized communities?
I think we do a really great job. I really do. And when there is an issue, it's usually a one-off and the community kind of knows who that person is and kind of like get them in line or they get out. I think with anything, I would like to see people go a little bit more care into like pronouns. And there's been some instances where pronouns weren't respected. And so it's just careless. It's not even that they are purposefully trying to be nasty. They just are careless. And that's not okay. That's not an excuse to me. Like one time I understand, but then after that, you should be able to use somebody's pronouns correctly. And if you don't, then don't refer to them as a pronoun, just refer to them by name. So that's my only biggest takeaway is just be more cautious of the people you're playing, who they are in their own life and their journey. Just treat each other with basic respect. So I don't think that's that hard.
So being mindful and courteous, I think those things go a long way.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay. Well, we're approaching the creative segment of this show, which is you as a Lorcana card. I had asked you before the show to come up with an image / card to create yourself as a Lorcana card. So I'm going to pull that up now so that our viewers can see it. But we have here Stephanie, subtitle Lorcana Muse. Your keywords are storyborn, ally, and girly pop. You quest for 3. You cost 8 to play. You are 3 strength and 10 willpower with the special abilities of How Can I Help? Whenever you play this character and when she quests, your characters get support and resist +3.
Yep.
That's awesome. And tiny hands. Girly pop characters cannot be challenged while this character is in play. All right. So tell me a little bit about the card that you created and why some of those pieces are on there.
So first of all, I love that you're doing this because I love being creative. I wanted to make it so I wouldn't be errated. So I originally listened to 4 cost and then I was like, no, I need to be an 8 cost.
You're like, no, I'm got a high value cost.
With Storyborn, I felt like this is still my story and I'm still telling it. So I wanted to represent me. I feel like pretty self-explanatory. I'm an ally for everybody. And then Girly Pop, my daughter calls everybody Girly Pop if they're like cute, and boy or girl, you're a Girly Pop. So I was like, oh, I like Girly Pop. I love my friends and my family, and I'm always their biggest cheerleaders. So I really wanted to give something where I am providing you guys with support, making it so it's harder to take yourself down, whether it's outside forces or a lot of the times it's internal forces. Like you start talking bad about yourself, and I'm like, no. Like, you are so much better than all the negativity or all the anxiety that you have in your brain. So that's where all that plays in. And that's why I use the flavor text down there too. I will always boost my friends. Their achievements and dreams mean so much to me. I will do whatever I can to support and help.
I love also that support, and helping people comes out in the actual gameplay of adding support.
Yeah.
Like, here, I'm going to boost your strength, and adding resist. It's like, hey, I'm going to help defend you.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a really beautiful way that you brought those characteristics of who you are into a card.
And I'm an amber, as you can tell, card, because I love that color. I think the support mechanic is so cool. I hope it gets a little bit more fleshed out, because I feel like we haven't reached its full potential yet. I did, when I shared this card with Brittany, I made a joke. So if you don't know us, there's this joke that I hate Ruby and she hates Steel, and we're always butting heads. And so I was like, don't worry, I'm a 3-cost, so I still died to Medusa. Because that card has hurt my feelings.
Oh, that's too funny. Thank you so much for being part of the Ladies of Lorcana project. Where can people follow your work and keep up with your content?
You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Lorcana Muses podcast. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook at the Lorcana Muses, on X/Twitter at the Lorcana Muses pod, or email us at the lorcanamuses@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Any final thoughts or projects that you'd like to share?
We are starting our own interview series. You can look out that probably in the next couple of weeks. We're doing a video series where, in addition to our content, every other Friday we share an interview with content creators.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed talking to you today and getting to know more about you. And thank you for being part of the Ladies of Lorcana project, where we celebrate strength, community, and the women shaping the future of TCGs. To everyone, until next time, keep embracing your power, lifting each other up, and making this a magical game for everyone. If you liked today's show, please like, subscribe, and you can follow Lady Lore 20 on YouTube, Instagram, or Blue Sky. Bye.
Bye.